Hello everybody. This is part 2 of literacy with Ashley. And so part 1 was for students who don't really know their individual letters and sounds. This part will be for what do I do with the students once they know their letters and sounds. I think I've taught literacy for about 8 years and I've tweaked this, and finally I'm pretty pleased with where we've gotten. But I learned that there is a rule that many of us don't know as native English speakers, that if a one-syllable word has one vowel, it makes the short vowel sound. If it's a one-syllable word with 2 vowels, it typically makes the long vowel sound. So I try to play with different ways to teach students that pattern so that they could try to actually correctly sound out words, and this is what I came up with. After you do all the practice with the consonants, I always identify the vowels as the crazy letters in English because they have 2 sounds instead of 1, and so that's why they're crazy and confusing. So every single day, without fail, literally every single day, we went over this chart. We would say the letter sound, the picture, and then the name, just so that they don't forget the name for both of them. So bear with me as I go through them all. Apple, A. Egg, E. It is, I. October, O. Umbrella, U. And then if it has 2 vowels, A, April, A. E, eat, E. I, ice cream, I. O, open, O. Oo, Tuesday, oo. So we do this every single day. After about the first week, you'll know who's with you, and then they slowly start teaching the others. But the more you practice it every day, I promise they will get it. The harder ones are the short vowel sounds because it's just little micro movements that are different in your mouth. So to practice that, I like to be real awkward, so here we go. I show them my mouth only, and they have to tell me which picture my mouth is gonna make. So if I go, the students inevitably start going, and then they say October, and then they start saying apple. So literally, if you move your mouth correctly, then they can make the sound correctly. So for they really need to get their cheeks out there. For it's a small mouth, and it's just barely open. So the more that you practice that, the more that they practice that, and they can hear the difference a little bit better. So every single day in class, we practice the chart, and then we have some focus phonics practice for the day to practice both of them and to differentiate. So I'm gonna do an example. This one, we would start with AT. I personally don't like to use a projector for this. I like to go old school with tape. All right, so we would start off. We have AT, how many vowels do you see? And then if they need the reminder, these are the vowels. How many do you see? 1 or 2? And so eventually students will start saying 1. So then they can look at this box, and if it's 1 vowel, it is the sound like apple or April. So even if they can't read, they can see number 1 and number 2. So for 1 vowel, it sounds like apple, so we circle. Then all together, the A is a, T is t, and together, at. So then we've got 6 different pictures, some are better than others, that have the sound at in it. So this first one, none of them ever know. I have a really hard time finding other photos, but the word is flat, like flat land. Sometimes you gotta act it out. If they know it, great. If they don't, that's okay, you can tell them, but then have them help you sound it out. So fl, fl, and let the students tell you. So at, and slowly but surely, then they can copy it on their page. The other ones that don't have the blends are a little bit easier. Bat is a pretty simple one. So then for each and every one, you would go through. Before moving on to the next picture, I like to review each one so that they are reading every day. So I would go back and say, what is the sound for AT? At, flat, bat, and then we one by one go through it all. That way their mouth is always going back to that movement, and so hopefully it's routine. At the bottom, there's some other words that I don't have pictures of. We could have had some pictures of these. I tried to make a blend of just one letter, one consonant versus 2 or 3, because sometimes we've got mixed levels. So if you've got pure literacy, these are better. If you've got lower beginning who can read a little bit more, these are good practice. So I try to blend them together. So we would go through all of AT, then ideally on the other side, we would have ATE to practice the opposite. I like to put them right next to each other so that we can compare. So same type of question. For ATE, how many vowels do you see? Again, if you don't remember, these are the vowels. Once we talk about 2, I also like to underline them so that they can see which ones. If there's 2 vowels, is they sound like apple or April? They can see the number 2, we circle April. So this time, A is finished. Now we have A, T, and the E is silent. So 8. Then we do the same type of activity. So 10, 10, 16 is in date. So they would help spell that. And then again, go back through and review. 8, date, blah, blah, blah. So then we can compare the 2. I'm trying to see if there's any real good examples. So down here, you could actually compare fact versus fate and show them no E, yes E. 1 vowel, 2 vowels. So it shows them in the same class time that we have the same letter, but it's crazy, so we have to practice 2 different sounds. If you have higher level students, I always like to do this. While you have all of this still written on the board, do a little bit of reading comprehension, because I was thrilled to see students start sounding these words out, and then we would do reading comprehension and they'd have no idea, even though they could read the words. So for this one, I could put very simple English as much as you can about words that they already know. So typically I would do about 5. I don't want to come up with the rest of them. But as a group, because it's really hard individually, we would read together. And as a large group, they should be able to. So all together, month, day, year. You can read through it a couple times and then say, okay, from the pictures, which one is connected to month, day, year? So then they think it through, and then a lot of them say date. So then we can write it next to that. For the lower ones who maybe still can't sound it out, but their listening comprehension is better, you could also number the words to give them a chance to answer. So in that case, if they can't read date, they can say number 7, and it's still correct. So they're still kind of getting that participation in there. You can see that they understand, they just don't understand in writing it. Then ball. So to go with a ball, bat. So again, very basic, very simple reading comprehension that way. So all of this I would do in class. I think it probably takes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the kind of groove that you get in with that. I always like to follow up with distance learning. So I'm going to pull the chair up again. For the lower level students, most of these worksheets have a matching activity. So here's the word, here's the letter. Ideally, they would remember some of it. If they don't, I always like to remember, you have the answers from class. If you forget, go together. And so then all they literally have to do is match. So they would have 1 for at, 1 for 8. Another thing you could do for lower level that just need practice with their handwriting, and this is kind of hard, so you can play with it, but we've got the at and 8 words. If they can read it, awesome. But it's asking them to move it from this, to change it from the small letters to the capital letters. So here's all small, so then they would need to go B-A-T capital. Again, that's a little hard in explanation, but that's an option. This one I unfortunately only have on site here at Americana because if you zoom in, it's a little ghetto, shrunk and stapled on here, and I don't have it scanned yet, but this is the kind of activity that we did in class. So if you have low beginner, you could do something like this where they read, play baseball, and then they have all the answers on the same page so they could look back at it. If you're at a different site and you're interested in this, you're welcome to come to Americana. One day, hopefully all this will be scanned, but at the moment it isn't. Almost done. Another thing I like to do is I categorize these by, if you watched the first video, we talked about how B and P are in the same sound family. D and T are in the same sound family. So after at and 8, the next day I would probably do add and aid so that they can practice the D and T, the difference there. From there, the patterns I like to go through is going back and forth between the D, T, B, P, those types of sounds, and then go through all the vowels. So then it would go to E, T, and ED so that they're practicing all the vowels as well. After about a week or so, if your students are high enough, I like to do this type of review activity. It's a little bit bigger reading comprehension, but, and again, I'm sorry, it's cut and taped and it's not super friendly and it's not scanned. But there's a word bank, there's a picture, and then there's like using it in a sentence. So if a student can remember lamp, awesome. Then if they don't remember how to spell it, they can see there. Then they can read it in context. There is a lamp in the living room on the table. And as they go through all of the CASA's curriculum, a lot more of this vocab should be familiar. So this would be a review of, I think that's 6 different sounds there. And then lastly, this one is not homemade, but if you don't have time to look through all of this, I'm a fan of hubbardscovered.org. They have some really nice little word family books. And so it's just, you'd have to cut it in half and put it together. But in my hat, it focuses on the AT. And so it's really just sight words with a bunch of at words. The mat sat in my hat. The mat sat in my hat. Oh, there it is again. The cat sat in my hat. So it's something else that you don't have to make, but it's an option. They don't have them for all of the word families that exist, but it is a good one. That's all I have for now. I love this stuff. I promise it works. I hope you'll give it a try, especially if you've got low-level readers. It really does boost their confidence and slowly but surely gets them reading and understanding what they read. Let me know if you've got any questions.